Back in August of 2023, I decided that I wanted to start taking competitive shooting a lot more seriously. Previously, I was shooting USPSA, PCSL, and outlaw matches from concealment with my Glock 48. But when I decided to get more serious about it, I knew that that meant purchasing a gun specifically built for competitive carry optics use, which also meant getting a dedicated outside the waistband belt system and holster. Fortunately, when I purchased my Walther Match Q5, it came with the holster already, but it wasn't really set up for carry optics. So I had to use a Dremel and get DIY with it and make an optic cut. The holster was originally from Red Hill Tactical and it served me quite well, but I definitely prefer to feel the trigger guard kind of click into the holster. This holster feels a little bit more mushy going into the holster as opposed to that positive click that I'm used to. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great holster, but it's just not necessarily my personal preference. So after getting my holster with my gun, the only thing really left for me to pick out for myself was a belt system. But quite frankly, I had absolutely no idea where to start. And if I've learned anything about on-body gear selection, it's that it can be very difficult to find products that are designed and purpose-built for someone my size. For a point of reference, I'm 5 feet tall with absolutely 0 additional inches to show for myself and weigh a little over 100 pounds. So I knew that finding a good belt system was almost certainly going to require some kind of customization. In an effort to kind of streamline that whole process and reduce my learning curve, I reached out on Instagram and asked them about what kind of belts they were using at matches. And they were so helpful. They walked me through selecting my magazine carriers and my belt system. Seriously, I have no idea what I would have done without them or where I would have started. They're both incredible shooters and I really enjoyed watching their journey over the last couple of years on Instagram, and I would highly recommend that you follow them as well. They encouraged me to order a double alpha link system belt with a ratcheting closure for my belt, a DAA racer magazine carriers with the addition of a single slightly more expensive Alpha X IP magazine carrier for the unloaded table starts. I ended up purchasing everything through Ben Steger's Pro Shop instead of the Double Alpha website, simply because they just had everything in stock. I would definitely recommend that you check out both websites and kind of compare pricing and availability. I found that it was less expensive for me to go with the one that I didn't have to pay for multiple iterations of shipping. So once everything kind of came in, there was a lot of assembly required, but I felt like the years of assembling dozens of Filster Enigmas had kind of prepared me for that exact moment in time. So if you guys want to watch me assemble this link system belt, you can watch this video here. I've been using this belt system for about 6 months at this point and really only have a few minor complaints. So let's get into it. First, one of the major benefits of this link system is that it's extremely bendy, for lack of a better word. Not only does that kind of make it extremely easy to store and travel with, but it's also beneficial for those of us with thin or athletic type builds. It sort of rounds corners a lot more easily than a traditional belt style. One problem I've encountered though, and haven't really found a solution to yet, is that my holster's hanger is just wide enough that it essentially fixes 2 of the link squares together, which turns this section here into a 2-inch space that really can't bend, which also just so happens to fall right where my body curves. So this is an area where I really feel like I can benefit from the link system the most, but because of the width of my hanger combined with the width of the link squares, it's just one long piece that doesn't actually curve around my hips very well. The next problem I encountered really isn't related to the belt system itself. After I got a few hours into my first match, I noticed that my hip bones were really starting to rub on my inner belt. The inner belt is what actually goes through your belt loops, and then the links belt attaches with the Velcro to the outside of that inner belt. After my first match, I took my belt off and found sores kind of worn into the front of my hip bones, which turned into scab bruises the following day. Now, I can definitely soldier through discomfort like that when needed, but my main problem with this was that it was just too painful to actually carry a gun for the days following the match. So I immediately sought a DIY solution because, quite frankly, I couldn't really find a single inner belt anywhere that could provide some cushion for my hips. And that kind of worked for a little bit, but eventually a friend recommended I try this micro grip belt from High Speed Gear. And this is working just fine for right now, but it's still not really purpose-built for this solution and for this particular problem. Something to note about this belt as well, if you're interested in looking into it, it does have a little bit of padding to it, but it's not designed for this specific purpose. So For example, this belt that I use is, I think it's an extra large or a large. And even still, it doesn't wrap all the way around my waist, just because it's not designed for this purpose. The last issue I've encountered over these last couple of months with this gear is that my hanger digs into my side pretty good. I just went ahead and Velcroed a concealment holster wedge to it to kind of act like a cushion between the metal and my body. But this is really something I'd like to find a better, more purpose-built solution for in the future. Let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions. And besides those three things, honestly, all of this has worked pretty well for me for the last couple of months, and I don't really have any plans on changing anything in the near future.